So we're very pleased today to have Amy Tolhurst with us. Thank you, Amy, very much for participating in our project.
Glad to be here.
Okay, now the interview always begins with some background questions just for context to allow viewers to understand where the interviewee comes from and their background. So I'll start off by asking you, where were your parents born?
My father was born in Saint-Louis-de-Gonzague in the southwest corner of Quebec. And my mother was born in a little hamlet called Allen's Corners, about 5 miles away from Saint-Louis-Gonzague. And Allen's Corners is a crossroads community that links 3 municipalities together.
Okay, and where were you born?
I was born in Allen's Corners.
Okay, very good. And where did you receive your education? Elementary, secondary, and any post-secondary?
Yeah, so I had my primary education at Howick Elementary School and at Ormstown Elementary School. After that, my parents chose to send me to a private school, Emmanuel Christian High School in Dorval, Quebec. And after that, I completed my secondary education at Chateauguay Valley Regional High School in Ormstown, Quebec. I went on to St. Lawrence College at the Cornwall campus to study nursing, and I received my collegiate diploma as a nurse. And I've done some post-secondary certificates, just mostly online through St. Francis Xavier University, and also through I can't even think of the name anymore. Anyway, doesn't matter, in New Brunswick. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Now, what is your occupation currently?
So I have a double occupation. I'm a nurse. I'm a registered nurse, and I'm also a dairy producer along with my son and my husband.
Very good. And where do you live now?
Now I live in Howick.
Okay, very good. So we're going to get to what I call the meat of the matter here. And these are questions concerning your experience living in Quebec today. We'll start out by asking you, what in your experience is the best thing about living in Quebec?
I would have to say, hands down, it's beautiful. The scenery is beautiful. The land that we farm is some of the best land in the country, for sure in the province. This area is very familiar to me. I grew up on the river, on the Chateauguay River, and when I moved to the farm, I just moved 5 miles down the river. So all of those things are the things that made me happy when I was young, and they continue to do that. And I also really appreciate the climate that we have in Quebec, because we have change. And we have change that's out of our control, so we have to accept it no matter what happens, and we adjust accordingly. And that I really enjoy that.
Okay, now the next question a lot of people have had trouble with, and it's completely understandable. I certainly would if it was posed to me, but having said that, I'd like you to answer the question as posed, but you're free to elaborate on your answer as much as you'd like. So, describe your relationship to Quebec in a single word.
Comfortable. That was an easy one for me.
Okay.
It's comfortable for the same reasons that I said before. And I think that as individuals, we always look for comfort, and we always look for ways to be comfortable. As a nurse, when somebody's in pain and they're uncomfortable, it's very, very, very unpleasant, and we're always seeking solutions. So that's why I chose that word.
Okay. And where do you feel most at home in Quebec? For example, in communities based on language, culture, profession, or geographic location?
Yeah, my geographic location is where I feel the most comfortable, because there's many things that please me. There's many things that make me happy, but I feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world when I get to sit in the place that I love the most and look at it every day and work with it, feed it, give back to it. That's what I would have to say without question.
Okay. Now, the next question is a two-part question, and I've had feedback about the second part. People say to me, Dave, what do you mean by official definition? Which is a good question. And what I mean by it is, or not me, but what we mean by it is official can be anything you perceive to be the so-called official definition of a Quebecer. It could be something you've seen in the media, what you share with your peers, what the Quebec government says, what the federal government says, whatever you perceive to be the official definition of Quebec. So having said that, I'll ask the two-part question. How would you define a Quebecer? And do you think the official definition in Quebec includes you?
To the first part, I would define a Quebecer as resilient. The official definition, does it include me? My interpretation of that, what I consider to be the official definition, is a distinct society. And to answer that, I would say absolutely that includes me.
Now, has your sense of identity as a Quebecer changed over the years? And if so, in what ways?
I would say definitely. My sense of Quebec, being a citizen of Quebec, has changed over the years. And I would say particularly in growth of myself as a person, growth of my community, growth of my competencies. It's reinforced my values living here. It's expanded my knowledge to live here. Multi-language, different types, my appreciation for the arts and my recognition of the cultural qualities is huge here because it is so rich in cultural history. It's enhanced my knowledge of history, and it's provoked me to study more of history to try and understand why we make the decisions that we do that aren't always easy. As administrators, as politicians, as citizens. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers my sense of identity.
Now, what are, from your perspective, what are some of the most difficult things about living in Quebec?
The most difficult things are the rate or the speed that we're able to advance. It seems that we are consistently hitting roadblocks that block our path to success, but I don't see that always as a bad thing. I see roadblocks as something that's put in our way to help us have thoughtful reflection, to really carefully consider the decision that we're making, and to see if there's another direction that might be better or not. I just, when you're young, you want everything to happen faster than it actually does. And that can be a quality, or it can be what we would say a défaut in French. And I think when people never have any obstacles, the road to success becomes a highway that sometimes can cause them issues. And for myself, that would be, I appreciate it. It frustrates me sometimes. It discourages me sometimes, but it also motivates me to, get back up and find what the next step is. My second point to that question is the the difficult thing is the resistance to change here. It's hard to convince people to change. In my work as a nurse, we see that all the time when we're asking people to improve their health because we know it can be so much better for them, but they're resistant to it. It's I would say it's particularly predominant in Quebec, this resistance because of fear and fear of the unknown or fear of losing something. But yeah, that would be my second biggest challenge of living here in Quebec.
Okay. Now, in recent years, some members of Quebec's Francophone majority have identified a number of linguistic and cultural threats. Which of these concerns do you share and support, and which of these concerns make you feel excluded or targeted?
So I'm just reading the note that I wrote to myself here. Um, yeah, I don't make decisions based on threats. Never. I recognize a threat, but I cannot be persuaded to make a quick decision because of that, unless my life is in danger, I guess. But as a general practice, people, when they say that things are like the French language is threatened, or they feel threatened by the fact that um, people moving into the community are unilingual or whatever, that doesn't cause me any issue. The uniqueness of our French culture, I would say, is only minimally supported by the language. I feel the beauty of the French culture that we harbor here in Quebec is related to many, many things that we all share in common, which includes our skills, which includes our what we value, which includes the whole notion of family. I find it's kind of odd that this week was Family Day everywhere else in the country except here. But I would have to say that I feel the family ties here in Quebec are more tighter than what you see anywhere else in Canada, from my experience, because people other than Ontario, people have moved to those other areas and don't necessarily take their families with
And
them.
what in your mind is the biggest problem facing Quebec, and how do you think it could be resolved?
Um, I would say the exclusiveness and the bias. Um, I have a hard time. I understand it, but I have a hard time when, for instance, our premier says we have to shut down the border for people seeking refuge here. I'm afraid I can't go along with that. I understand it, it's challenging, but I think the efforts would be better put into finding solutions for managing that than shutting it down. I feel a more hopeful approach for that, given the fact that we're in such a shortage of employable people right now. That's hopeful. These people are seeking hospice here. They're seeking help here. That would be a solution. Sharing our message, sharing with the world who we are, that it's a safe place here, that it's a welcome, could be a welcoming place based on your needs. Being kind to each other, no matter what the language barrier might be. We can communicate a lot by the way of our gestures or our intention or many other things. Language just needs to be a small part of that.
Okay, very good. Now, I'm just going to pause for a moment before I ask you the next question, because I want to know if you've had an opportunity to see the great documentary, What We Choose to Remember. Have you seen that?
No.
Okay, it's a documentary about the history of Quebec as seen through the lens of waves of immigration throughout history. And it traces those back, looks at it, and then kind of explains how we got to where we are through those lenses. It's a very, very informative, well-crafted, very fair-minded documentary. What I'll do, since you have not seen it, it's available to watch for free, and I will send you the link, which will take you to the site. You can watch it on your tablet, your phone, or if you have your the internet hooked up to your TV, obviously you can watch it there. But I'll make that link available. The gentleman who made the film, his name is Guy Rogers, a friend of mine. He is touring the province now with this film, and he is appearing in, church basements, community centers, you name it, and is doing so free of charge, encouraging people to come out and see the film and ask questions of him and of the film. So he may be coming to a community near you in the near term. I don't know if he does. I strongly recommend you go and see it. He's a very knowledgeable guy, very easy guy to talk to. And this film, in my mind, is a very important one. So I will send you that film via email, or link to the film via email after we're done. Now, getting back to the reason why I mentioned this to you is, for the next question, he used in that film a very helpful visual tool, which is a show of fingers. So in the next question, I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. So I'd like you to indicate by a show of fingers on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being weakest and 10 being strongest, how strongly do you feel that the joys of living in Quebec outweigh the challenges? Excellent. Very good. Thank you. And one last thing, I'll give you the opportunity here to say anything else about your sense of identity and belonging in Quebec.
Well, I guess what I'd like to say is that I would like to encourage people to do what they need to do to survive, be happy, and work effectively, no matter where you live. A lot of people in my generation, we lived through the first referendum. And when we graduated from high school, a lot of people said, we're out of here. A lot of my friends moved away, and it was, we felt like that we had lost something as a result of that. Obviously, you can't pick up a farm and jump ship, right? What we're seeing now is that some of our friends are coming back. They miss home. They often came home to visit their parents still. Some of our relatives who struggled in French said, I can't do it. I'm not going to live being unhappy. They've moved somewhere, but the grass isn't always greener somewhere else. And as they're getting close to retirement now, they're saying we're either going to come back and live in our parents' house, or we're going to find a home to live in, because this is home and this is where we want to be. So I find that we don't lose our sense of identity. We just adjust to what our needs are based on what period of life that we're in. Yeah, and I feel that those were because of where I lived as a crossroads. We often had many people stop at our house. They often stopped looking for directions. They stopped. Our house was close to the road. We had a big yard because my father had trucks as well as the farm, and it was easy to pull in. The francophones from the community of St. Louis de Gonzague, that was the road that linked them to get the bus that took them to Montreal. We became friends with a lot of those people because they stopped to use our telephone to have somebody come and pick them up. So I feel that the crossroads prepared me to have an openness, or have a willingness to listen, or to be helpful, or have a sense of purpose. And when you have a sense of purpose, you often try and find whatever tools you need to help you do that task. And that was why I always knew 2 languages. My father was completely fluent. He was a connector. And so we always heard the French language in our home. It just seemed to be fairly natural, even though we identify as Anglophones. They didn't have to insist or push us, any of us, my brothers and sisters, to learn. It was all just part of what we did, and it helped us become very satisfied with our situation, and with a desire to encourage others to do the same.
Well, I'd like to thank you officially, Amy, very much for participating. I'm going to turn off the recording now. We can have a brief chat afterwards off the record.